Good evening and welcome everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Radio Fremantle 107.9 FM in conjunction with Abundant Hope, the organization that everyone should know about and everyone should take part in. I'll get into that more a little later on. Benjamin with you. I'm very happy you can join us again. This is another interview. We're having a pre-recorded interview with another very special guest. I've been very lucky to find myself speaking to Rosie. Rosie is a member of the Abundant Hope organization, and I have to admit, going through some of the information she supplied me about who she is and what she does, even if this program was nothing to do at all with spirituality or an external theme, talking to Rosie about her life up until this point would be an interview in and of itself because it's quite extraordinary. Rosie, are you hearing me loud and clear?
Thank you, Ben. I can hear you. And thank you for that description. I don't know what your definition of extraordinary is, but we'll wait and see.
Well, absolutely, because just like I said, perusing through this list of some of the things that you've done, that you do, and that you have, the places you've traveled, etc. A lot of people spend the entirety of their lives not moving out of, for instance, their hometown or experiencing half the things that you've experienced in your life to date, and it's a fascinating life that I can see here, and I look forward to sharing it with you. So, Rosie, now you are again as well affiliated with the Abundant Hope organization, and this in particular is one of the reasons I wanted to bring you onto the program and to relate some of the experiences that you have had, not only with the organization, but your own experiences in life. Firstly, if we might start with you personally. Now, you are an artist, amongst other things, and based in Northern Europe, and you've done a lot of traveling around the world. Is that correct?
Yes, my mother was German and my father was English, so we did travel an awful lot to see grandparents, etc. I also grew up in an area which was really quite boring for a young person, so I have always had this desire to travel, and I registered that very early on. In my 20s, I traveled to Central America, and when I was 25, I spent 2 years in China teaching, which was an amazing experience. And when I came back, everybody treated me as an expert on China, if you like, which I was not. Because 2 years in maybe a long time. However, this was just in one place, in a tiny segment of experience in a huge country which is as large as Europe. And to be asked questions, say, if you'd lived in a little Italian village, if you're asked questions about Norway, it's that sort of difference we're talking about. So what I realized from that is how little I know, and also how little I know about other countries where I have not lived. So the whole journey was really fascinating from a learning point of view. Culturally, also, you learn that Chinese are not all this stereotype, yellow skin, slit eyes, all this. There were all sorts of types, all sorts of people, very, very warm-hearted. I loved my students, and they loved me also. And, I just learned an awful lot. I also learned that there are 50 minority nationalities within China itself.
Really?
This is just one example, with their own language and customs also.
Very big word out there. It's almost similar to the spiritual question, where people suggest the more questions or the more knowledge and wisdom you accumulate, the more questions there are to ask. And similarly, I would imagine it is traveling around the world. Lucky as I am to be able to have done a little bit myself, you realize there's so much out there to be learned and understood in so little time. But that's
Yes.
above and beyond the point. Now, I wanted to relate more of your experiences to the Spiritual Revolution project, which you authored, but we'll get into that a little bit later. I want to talk a little bit more as well about your you're a freelance artist and a writer, and you compose songs as well, and you've been doing well, that among other things. Have you been an artist for the majority of your adult life?
I would also say for the majority of my child life too.
Okay, well,
Sim
yeah, yeah. Mm.
Simply because I really did not stop, although I was studying completely different things. I even remember in the school breaks, I used to steal paper from the room where the teachers kept their materials, just so that I could draw in the break. We're talking about 15 minutes. So it has been quite an obsessive thing, but I have not followed that, strangely enough, as a career until I was in my 40s. So it's always possible to change. Or it's, let's say, there's always a sort of red thread going through the whole experience which I have had, which involves being creative on different levels. How to teach is also a creative project, if you like.
Yeah, well, I was interested as well because and we spoke yesterday at some length about this, and I mentioned to you that in my background there is some experience with the arts of different kinds, and I was kind of whinging a little bit with you because I said, I really don't feel like art occupies the space that it should in our lives, and it doesn't occupy the space that it should in people's spiritual lives, and that it doesn't occupy the space that it should anywhere. And you mentioned that you thought that was the case as well, that it should hold a really prominent part in the cultures of the peoples of the planet. But in terms of spiritually, how important is it, do you think, for humanity to evolve spiritually, to incorporate art in that journey and that experience?
Well, in art, I would include music, performance, dance, all these things, not just painting, etc., which is most of what I do. I think it's essential to see that art is not just an amusement or a distraction, but it's or a professional investment, which is what a lot of it has become. It can also be a form of worship or service. It depends on the intent that the artist has, which is sometimes in these days very questionable. But if you think of, say, the Russian artists who paint icons or have done in the past, they spend about 20 hours preparing the surface. They pray and meditate beforehand. They bless their materials. They are extremely thorough. They scrub the surface for 20 hours before they even start. They breathe on the surface so that it has a particular moisture before even that the gold is put on. And afterwards, it is all blessed, and it's a completely different method of going about things.
Yes.
And another example, I mean, whether the way modern art has developed recently, for me, is rather questionable. If you think of something like a head of a pig, of a dead pig, it must be said, inside a glass presentation box, and that is supposed to be art, the way it decays. If all that does is to evoke a feeling of great distaste and
Revulsion.
revulsion, then that, it has not uplifted the vibrations of the planet in any way. However, if 7 billion people are forced to parade past this pig's head, it could, if we are being very visionary here, it could be the end of slaughter of pigs for meat on this planet. Who am I to judge in that case?
Mm.
It is. It can be it depends what has the act of producing the art brought the person themselves, the artist, and what has it brought the person who is affected by it? Does it affect them at all? Yeah, I have huge paintings here at home which are 5 meters long. Some people walk in and don't notice them, which is yes, or they think a new painting. I've done a new painting, and it's not actually a new painting at all. It's been hanging there for 5 years. It is a question of uh, perception. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and it's true. I think we discussed this at an earlier date, but the incredible communicative tool that art is, and whatever mode of art that you're using to convey whatever message you are, can be incredibly powerful. And like many things, excuse me, it all comes down to the intent in with which it's used and the perception or how it's perceived by those who are viewing it. But I really feel I know exactly what you mean. I saw something recently that affected me greatly. The Piss Christ, um, well,
Oh yes,
artistic piece. You've heard of that one, obviously.
yes, I have.
It's
Yes.
been around for quite some time. For those of you who've never heard of it, it's basically the crucifix, the religious symbol, a very very holy symbol for the Catholic religion, and it was immersed in a vat of urine. And there were many artistic explanations as to what it was exactly saying. But to my mind, it was really something that really wasn't beneficial or uplifting, not because necessarily it affected Christians or Catholics per se, but the way in which people would treat something so incredibly valuable to people's spiritual life. I didn't see that much could be done with it, or much good could become of it. So I really do agree that these tools are very important, and how they are used is very important, and the way in which certain things are depicted can be incredibly poignant. It can be incredibly devastating or revolting, depending on how it's done about. And I mentioned this yesterday. I am a little saddened because, in my opinion, I feel like, for the most part, like I said, the tool that we have, this artistic tool that is mode of expression for humanity, really, is used in the majority of cases for the wrong reasons. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, and I would agree that art is a tool for transforming, and this is in fact the very basis of my project because I have portrayed the world as it is. Reality. I researched all the dreadful things happening in the world at the moment and have put them on canvas. In fact, I have painted 100 people. But I could not leave it at that. I thought, what can I? Okay, I've tried to show everybody what's happening here, but it still needs to be transformed. So then I made the momentous decision to paint it all again, where all these people with all their problems were actually shown in having transformed themselves not through increased material gain, but through increased awareness, through positive qualities, of which there are also 100. So this is a project where I try to involve people to identify themselves with one of these global villages, as I call them. It encourages them to see the similarities between themselves and perhaps the issues they're dealing with, and the similar issues in another country felt or experienced by someone of a completely different culture, completely different religion, living in completely different circumstances, and finding the similarity between the two, which is the emotional level and not the material level. So these statistics, which started this whole project off, those are just a starting point. And in fact, at the end, they are an element of disturbance.
Well, Rosie, you've gone ahead and jumped straight into the pond. So we're gonna we might as well head in that direction right now. The Spiritual Revolution project, this project that you have spearheaded, and will make people more aware of as we go on. Can we then? We might as well go into that right now. Can we talk about a little bit what it is the Spiritual Revolution project is, and tell me a little bit how it came into being. Can we go that way?
Um, yes, we can.
Okay, great.
It was very strange actually because I was sent the same text via email, in letters, or it was recommended to me by a person on the phone. This happened again and again, and I then asked myself, okay, what is the meaning of this? And the text was, if the world is a village of 100 people, then there would be, and then came a whole load of statistics. There would be 49 men, 51 women. There would be 60 from Asia. There would be 12 Europeans, etc., etc. There would be 50 who are more than 26 years of age. There would be one who had AIDS. There would be one who is a teacher. There would be two that would die very soon. This text inspired me so much, and as I say, kept being sent to me, that I decided I had to invent these 100 people. And as I am an artist, I also decided to paint them, which took me 2 years. And at the same time, I did an awful lot of research. When you've got to decide, okay, I've got 23 Muslims. In which countries are they? Are they men? Are they women? Uh, are they European? Are they? You have to sort them all out. So I was
Yes, yes.
constantly juggling, yeah? And in the course of that, it was quite easy for me to invent biographies of 20 Chinese people because I'd been in China and met lots of people, obviously.
Right,
But
right.
when it comes to Africa, I was a bit, well, just not, I had to do a lot of research. And I placed them in certain villages and towns also, which fitted the experience that I was putting them through, so to speak. Now, what I would like to say is that going through this whole process myself vastly expanded my awareness of what's going in the world, of different cultural systems or thought systems in different countries. And also, at the end of this, I decided that each of these 100 global villages should go through a transformational process, which I would then describe in writing also, apart from actually painting them again. And then I would give them all a positive quality. So I've got 100 positive qualities. So now this whole thing is like a tarot. I can go down the stairs in the morning and say, oh, I think 16 is important today. And that means that I shall have to watch trust. How much do I trust other people? It's important for that day.
It's
Or if
incredible.
I
It's incredible, Rosie. I'm sorry. Just you pass through this information quite nonchalantly, but it's quite an incredible project, even the way in which you describe it. 2 years to take the time you did to create. You invented 100 people, and you afforded them certain statistics and characteristics based on the particular email that you received and the information that was provided therein. You painted them as well as creating them and giving them these statistics. You painted them in a certain light, and then you painted them again, giving them a more positive quality, and then you wrote a biography showing their transformation. Is that basically what you've done?
that is,
And
yes.
and
And
you've called it the Unity Tarot.
I've called it the Unity Tarot, yes.
Okay.
So if you give me a number, I can tell you what quality is important for today.
Oh, really? Okay. What day are we on today? Do you have a day?
Oh no, it depends on your
It
choice, as
depends on my
always.
choice. Okay, all right. So you developed this this Unity Tarot and this Spiritual Revolution project, you did it because why? I don't know. I mean, this is a huge project, and it's a well, some would suggest that it takes a fair amount of commitment to go ahead and do this. You just said it was just because some people sent you an email, or a few different people sent you the same email, and you thought there was some merit in that. Did you?
Well, I have learnt from other episodes in my life that whatever seems to happen by chance actually isn't, and that it is there to push me on to a new awareness, and it's a learning process. So if something happens so often like that, I sort of, the bells start ringing and I think, oh, why is it? And sometimes I did feel a bit mad during the whole process
Well,
because
it's a
it did.
huge project. It's so incredibly huge, and I just still can't quite. I understand what you're saying when you say that there are episodes in your life that happen, and if you're like me, you have the understanding that there really is nothing coincidental. There are real meaning behind everything, and as such, you jumped on this and you went ahead. You were just inspired to do it. I mean, this idea just popped into your head. How did it happen? You
Well,
just
ideas are always popping into my head, which is sometimes a problem, but I know that they are divinely inspired. It's not me. I am like a channel where this inspiration, if you like, is coming through and it wants to manifest. So, this is what I do with the writing and songs also, that sometimes I get these ideas in the middle of the night and write them down, or I've suddenly got the tune for a song, or how someone is to be helped. um, it it happens on many different levels.
do you always act on the ideas you have?
Um, no, because I find that I'm very limited in what we call this three-dimensional world.
Yeah.
If my thoughts would, if the element of time did not exist and my thoughts would manifest immediately, it would be much easier. No, it's just because with a project like this, there are so many levels of how it can be used, and this is really my hope, that people will take it and use it in a variety of different ways. They could say, oh, give us the information for all the global villages in the United States and we'll make a play out of these roles. Or I have given personal seminars where people choose, they don't know who they're choosing, of course, a global villager, and then they are asked to pretend to be this person. And there are a variety of ways it can be used, and I just hope at some stage it will take off.
Did you originally begin the idea with the plan to do something with it like you're doing now at the end of the project, or you just thought I'm going to do the project and let's see what happens?
Well, I felt driven to complete this, and it was I was very despondent after a while after finishing the first painting, which is called The World Reality. And when I realised that really I could not leave it like that, and I had to paint for another 2 years doing the second one. So I have had my struggles, and in fact, the most difficult thing was moving from painting all this negative stuff to painting all the positive stuff. Once I got started, it was no problem, but it was the changeover. So this is like a personal transformation for me. I am part of all these 100 people. So this is the feeling of unity that I would like to send out into the ethereal waves of the universe, if you like. And also, it could well be that I have been such people in previous lives. This is also something which I think often, or who I may be in the future.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Can you give me an example? So, um, do you have handy an example of one of the global villager biographies? Is it possible that we might hear from one of the biographies? I mean, they're not too long, are they? You
Oh
could
no,
you
no.
could you could could you give us an example of one of these biographies on one of these character that you created?
Yes. I mean, the one that I have in front of me is number 82, and it is a boy aged 2. And
Well, take us through it, Rosie. Give us the
yeah,
picture. Give us this
in a
person.
seminar, the participant would choose this person. They would get a piece of paper, and on the piece of paper, it would say, I am a 2-year-old boy with only one wish, to be carried all the time or to sit on my mother's lap. I will fight for this any way I can. So the first step is for the participant to actually say those words and to reflect upon the feelings that arise. Because nothing happens by chance, the global villager you pick will have something to do with you on one level. The last time this happened, it was very poignant. Then, at a later stage, I would give this participant the country where this boy is from. So then they would have to say, or they are invited to say, I am a 2-year-old boy from Cameroon with only one wish. And as a European person, you might first of all not know where Cameroon is.
Yeah.
And you could perhaps have never imagined yourself as a black person, which in previous lives is probably the case.
Yeah.
And then at a later stage, the material circumstances could also be added, or the religion. For example, I'm a 2-year-old boy from Cameroon. I'm undernourished and without safe drinking water, with only one wish. And then there are also questions which belong to this particular story. I can show the painting that I have done of this boy and the painting of him in the second picture where he has changed or at a later stage in life. Now, the quality, which is also given at a later stage for this particular global villager, is reassessing boundaries, which actually is a very important thing in our day and age because we often live in little boxes with certain ideas, certain religions, certain daily routines. Often we just have a very limited perspective of our own lives and places where we live. The local, the national, the global, or the cosmic perspective is really not gone into a lot. So reassessing boundaries. Then at the end of the text, I don't know if you want me to read that, but there
I
are then,
do. Before you, what about these questions? You mentioned there are questions. Like
yeah,
what questions? Give me examples of some of the questions
yeah.
you would ask.
Questions would be, when did you last scream and cry like a 2-year-old child? What methods do you use to gain attention? How quickly do you give up? Could the root of your resignation lie in your past? What if you acted as if failure is impossible? What behavioural patterns which you learned as a baby are still part of your behaviour now, although the situation is quite different, as you are no longer reliant on anyone else for survival? What if everyone worldwide were prepared to recognise behavioural pattern linked to the past, which has no relevance to the present? What if everybody is aware of their inherent worth, power, and godliness? Those are the questions which belong to the story.
You know what I
Um,
think is incredible. I want to go on and I want to hear this story as well. I want to continue on with this story to hear the fuller example of the global villager. But even as I hear it now, and I'm immersing myself in this world and hearing what you're talking about. I'm a 2-year-old boy from Cameroon, this African country, undernourished and without safe drinking water, with only one wish. Now, you have 100 examples of this type of thing where you've taken in the entirety of the scope of the planet as it stands today to represent everybody who lives on it. If you were to go through with some depth and examination every person on this 100-person global village, this this is a dangerous experiment. This
mm,
experiment would be incredibly dangerous today, and I say that because when you go through 100 examples of 100 different types of person, environment, of perception, you would start to understand the world in which you live in a much fuller way, a much more involved way, a much more compassionate way, and a much more understanding way. And that is generally so far removed from how we perceive the world around us right now. That's why this is so damn dangerous. And I'm so very glad you created this, because I think it's something that everyone should visit and everyone should make use of. I just wanted to input that because I'm just digesting it now, and it is a massive, massive project for light and goodness and peace on this planet. And I'm not sure exactly the fullness of your comprehension of that at the beginning of when you started this project, but now I'm sure you you as well see the incredible opportunity that exists with this project. It really is an incredible blessing, Rosie.
Well,
It is.
well, thank you. But I do receive my inspiration from above, from the cosmic mind, if you like. I have been able, due to fortunate circumstances, to manifest this. And I am very grateful to be of service. I see my life as being of service, and to try and give people an instrument which helps them to understand each other better. My recent experience of this very specific global villager was that a personal friend who I love dearly and who is very well-traveled and culturally informed found it very difficult to say, I am a 2-year-old boy from Cameroon. And
really, why is that? As you perceive it.
As I perceive it, it had to do with her personal story as a child, and also with a complete surprise that she was suddenly asked to pretend to be a person from Africa. In fact, I don't think she'll mind me saying this. She said, "Oh, perhaps I'm not a black child after all. Perhaps I am a child resulting from intermarriage or of colonials living there or something." That was her first reaction.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm far from being able to perceive this maybe most accurately, but I would imagine an example of that might be for some people the unwillingness to want to do that, to just simply the unwillingness to want to go there and experience that and have to develop the compassion in a way that's quite difficult when you're having to conceive of somebody else's life and the difficulties they might have to go through, and really it's a challenge, I think.
It's a challenge to step into somebody else's shoes completely.
Massive
Yes.
challenge, Rosie, and that's why this project is so crucial. And when I say this project is a blessing, you mentioned that you really, it wasn't yours, it was divinely inspired, and you were willing to take it on and make it happen. But that is exactly why I'm thankful you do it, and that's why there are real need for people like yourself to do exactly that, is to be not only divinely inspired, because I would venture that many of us are divinely inspired every second of every day, but it depends on your willingness to step up to the plate, take what you're given and have the courage to run with that, and for that I'm most thankful that you did it. Now, can we move forward, because this there's a story attached to this one as well. Can you tell me how the story of this particular global villager, where it fits into the process of the Unity Tarot?
How it fits into the process?
Well, you
Sorry.
mentioned there's a small story.
Okay. Yes. Would you like me to read it?
Could you please? Yes.
Yeah. A small toddler screams so loudly that he is actually purple in the face because he has been screaming so much. The more he screams, the more strongly the people around him react. It seems to result in being carried around more, which is comforting, but at the same time, the baby can sense the rising frustration of his carers. And in the end, they need a break and leave him to scream in the care of someone else. And so he gets passed on from person to person with a growing sense of insecurity. His screams become more desperate, but the cycle continues. It is only when the baby decides to stop screaming that he is totally accepted and no longer has to move on. As he grows up, he subconsciously tends to stay within this familiar, safe framework of not voicing his needs for fear of rejection. So that's the first part.
Now,
And
did you write that? Is that the biography section that you're referring to? Is that the biography, or what is that?
that is, as I have painted this small toddler in the first painting, in the world reality. Now, there's another paragraph
Yes, there
which shows
is. Right.
transformation.
Yes.
Yeah. So the child grows up to understand that he has served the very important purpose of testing the limits of several would-be mothers. He understands that his present resignation or failure to stand up for himself harks back to the time of his babyhood when he learnt to be quiet in order to please. This realization helps him deal with feelings of being insignificant whenever they arise, and with feeling of fear associated with breaking into new ground. As he knows of their close association with his past, he has learnt to accept that other people have certain limits, but has also learned that these limits need no longer determine his behavior or cramp his experience. He learns to separate his experiences into two distinct camps: his automatic reaction of resignation, harking back to his past as a baby, and his newly acquired reaction of reassessing supposed boundaries as a youth in the present, going forward through a new door of experience.
Great. So now that second section, that is your association with the more positively painted visualization, and then the first part is associated with the primary one. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. And you've done this 100 times. So,
Yes, I must be mad.
no, no, either mad or divinely inspired. But often they said the same are the greatest ones that live on this planet. So you can't be too worried about that. Now that is an example of one of the global villages. Is there more questions that are part of this particular global villager, or that would be the end of that particular section?
That's the end of the section.
Okay.
It is followed by the questions. And what we do in seminars, we do a lot of body work also to bring emotions to the surface. So contemplation of the pictures or of the texts or of, we do it in a way where you don't get all the information at once because it's too much.
It
So,
is a lot of
yeah.
information.
Yeah, so you can take we could actually, I think, take a month over
Yes.
global villager. But the important thing is that you forget all about Cameroon or that this baby is Christian and lives in poverty. The important thing is the participant realizes that they have similarities to this person, to this experience, and the circumstances and the religion and the country are not primary. There is unity between them. And you see, one of my visions is that 100 people will get together and look for these 100 villages in reality. So that means that the person who chose this boy from Cameroon would actually go to Cameroon and keep their eyes peeled for a young child who does not seem to be able to calm down, and to or an adult who has had this experience, and then to document it and to, I don't know, write a book, write a film, whatever inspires them. And then if you take the vision even further, you can imagine that such seminars are held in 100 countries. That means 100 people have chosen number 82, can all meet in Cameroon, or they can build a temple together, praising the value of reassessing boundaries, for example. My ideas just go on and on. I just be very if somebody else just takes it and runs with it.
Yes. And have you had any experiences yet of anyone taking any one of those global villages to that degree of following, for instance, traveling to a geographic location to explore more? Have you had anything like that yet?
I have had a couple of people who are interested, but they are really world travelers. Um, it has not happened yet. I have wanted to go to India to find my global villager, which I chose at a certain seminar together with all the others.
Okay.
That hasn't materialized either.
Mm,
So
mm.
it's in its stages of infancy, if you like.
And can I confirm again? You took 2 years to create it. When did you actually finish the entire project in terms of the painting and the biographies?
I would say 5 to 6 years it's taken me. But I was inspired on the way by other large art projects, which I happen to read about. For example, there's an Argentinian painter, Helmut Ditch, who takes 8 years over one painting of mountains. Or there's something else which impressed me at the time was that the Chinese painter IYY, who brought 1,001 Chinese over to Germany to the Documenta Art Festival in 2007, I think it was. And I don't know how he did it. It cost an awful lot of money, and of course, one has to have a look and see why that money was donated. However, it was a very interesting cultural project.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's is there, I should put this in right now before I keep on talking because I forgot to do it before and I should have done it. Is there an online reference that people can preview while they're listening to this interview? Is these things online?
They are online. I have the paintings under my website, which is www.rosiejackson.de.
Can you spell it
And
out for us? Can you give us the spelling, Rosie?
yes, Rosie as in Rosie, Rosie, Jackson, all one word, .de.
Okay, and
And
it's
from
all
there,
there.
I also have another website which is just the Spiritual Revolution Project, um, which is also linked to that site. So I think it's possible to get there. Otherwise, I
What's
shall
that
look.
one? Can you give us that one as well?
Gosh, I'll have a quick look myself. I just changed it. That's
Okay,
why.
okay.
I think it's Rosie Jackson DE, and then a slash revolution.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of all linked together, is it?
Yes, it is. I'm just
Okay.
looking at. Excuse the noise.
No,
Um,
that's okay.
yes, www.rosiejackson.de, revolution, all in lowercase letters.
What I like very much about this spiritual revolution project is for many people, for many of the people that I've interviewed, a lot of people that I would consider to be really quite spiritually advanced in many ways have gone on journeys and have really become much more self-aware, and in becoming much more self-aware they've become inadvertently more aware of their divine natures as well. But for the largest part, in my experience, it would seem like there are a lot of people out there who don't necessarily want to take a divine perspective. People struggle, in my opinion, a lot of the time to simply agree or to grasp an idea that our human selves and divine selves are interlinked. But what I feel that this project does as well is that it enables people who, for instance, don't necessarily directly relate divine nature with this particular project, and they can still achieve the same goals as someone who, for instance, might be more spiritually inclined and introspective and willing to deeply analyze their own lives. I mean, this is like a divine spirituality for dummies handbook, this one project, because really, in gaining the perspective that you would if you were to use this Unity Tarot and work through every single person, you would in effect becoming more humane, more spiritually aware, in as much as you're aware of humanity being one and unified and simply different aspects or fragments of a whole. I mean, it's a tool that people can use. It's very non-denominational. There's no particular bias in one particular manner or another, but it can actually take you on a journey that will end up leaving you somewhere much more of an ascended mindset, a broader, more aware consciousness. It's a fantastic tool, Rosie. I'm very grateful you brought this into being.
Well, yes, Ben, I think, but one of the main things is to conceive of one's life as a journey and a learning journey. And this can be done not only with a huge project like this, it can be done every second of the day. It is quite possible to travel the world without noticing anything. If one is very introspective, it is essential, I think, to always be aware of what's happening in one's life and to be aware that one has created that oneself. This is a basic prerequisite for me, that you see your life as your own creation, and then seeds like this can actually grow. This project did not come from nowhere. It has really a long developing process, and everybody is able to move in the direction they want to if they trust that their thoughts can manifest, that their ideas can manifest, if they have a view of themselves as a divine creator, part of the divine creation, if they have the concept that God is not someone sitting up in the clouds watching and punishing, but is like the life force behind everything, of which we are a part. And life is not sitting in an armchair, but creating the film that we're watching.
And it's also the fact that the things that you can learn from the spiritual revolution project, you don't you mentioned taking it to the extent where you would possibly go to another place, you would immerse yourself more fully in the experience itself in your own life. Even if you were to do that, if you were to use the perspective gained in the exercises that you would go through in the Unity Tarot, you can directly implement it into your own life without having to go anywhere or do anything, in as much as simply realizing that the necessity is to have a greater perspective when you live your life and deal with your brothers and sisters on this planet. I mean, would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely, Ben. You're saying all the right things. No, in many ways, you just say what I think about this, and my motivation is to change, and also to take away the fear. Many people are afraid of meeting people from other cultures, religions. There is so much fear out there in the world for a variety of reasons, which perhaps we won't go into now. But
we will in the second hour.
Oh, okay. Is that a subtle hint, I wonder?
Well, we have about a minute left. Actually, we have to bring the first section to a close, and maybe we'll do that now if it's okay, Rosie, because we'll just have a quick break. But if I can just give one more time before we go into the end of this section, folks, go to www.rosiejackson. Now, Rosie, the link you've given me here is Rosie dash Jackson.
That also works. That also works.
Or it can just be Rosie Jackson, lowercase, no spaces. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so let's just say www.rosiejackson.de. That's RosieJackson.de. And get into it, folks. It's a fantastic project and definitely worth a look. We are going to be plying Miss Rosie Jackson with many more questions after the break, so please stay tuned, and we will be back after this short interlude. All right, folks, welcome back. This is part 2 of our interview here on Radio Fremantle, The Source, 107.9 FM, and Abundant Hope Radio, which we don't have quite yet, but gee, we can dream and bring it together if we can. Now, Rosie, are you hearing us loud and clear on the other end?
Yes, I am, Ben. Thank you.
Wonderful, good. And now let's continue. I'd like to, if I can, take a little bit more of some of the examples of global villages from the project itself, because we only there's 100 to be precise, and we only visited with Global Villager 82. But in order to give the audience a little bit more indication of the scope of some of these people and where they from and what they represent, can I throw at you some numbers and then you give me some examples of who they are?
Oh, that's a good idea. Go ahead.
All right, excellent. I'm going to throw a number. Let's see. Can I have number 76?
76. Let me have a look. You have chosen a boy aged 11 who's sitting on a rock in a desert. This is the way I portrayed him in the painting. From Sudan in Africa. And the quality that he learns is patience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you give me some more? Do you have any of the questions that one might ask about this child from the Sudan?
I do. I just need to get the file.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's all right. No, 76. Go for it. 76. Nearly there.
Well, there's 100 different files to get through.
Just wading through. Yeah. The questions would be: in what way are your senses dulled? Could you be more attentive to others? What if you offered someone your help? Can you see the world in a grain of sand? Does your inability to set a large goal lie in the failure to see that it consists of many small steps? You see, now that's one that certainly applies to me and the project. Given that any dream can be achieved by a gradual step-by-step approach, what will you do next? What will you change in the world if no one had anything to fear from others, and if no one regarded anyone else as competition?
Right. So,
that's the boy down.
So, as the person who selected this number, where would I go? I would attempt to kind of analyze the perspective or take on the persona of that particular character and explore those questions by myself. Is that how it would work?
In a seminar situation, you would be invited to do that, yes, through role playing or through interaction with other people. But also, this is something you can just track yourself. You can track patience through your day, asking yourself, if you write at the beginning of the day the sentence, I am patience itself, and then immediately write your first thought. For example, no, that's not true at all. Or this morning I shouted at my dog. Or, if you do that, say, write that sentence 10 times in the morning, 10 times at night, you're tracking how patient you are. And the more precise you can locate impatience in your life, the more patient you will become. So that's, a very, very easy way of discovering whether you are patient or not.
Well, let's discover my patience some more. Can we go through some more numbers? I want to hear some more global villages. Let's do it. Can we hear number 16?
Number 16 is a man in Guangzhou, which many people know as Canton in China. He's a migrant worker, age 56, and he's sleeping on a station floor. His quality is trust, I think. Yes, trust.
30.
That's quite a... Yeah,
39.
Continuing.
Can we hear 39?
39 is a girl aged 11 from the Philippines. She's a child domestic doing household washing.
Right.
And her quality, 39, is courage.
And each one of these global villages will have a quality. You have 100 qualities per villager. Is that right?
That's right.
I see. Okay. And when you say characters, the people who are taking on or getting one of these characters from the Unity Tarot, and they analyze it, and they might role play. I mean, it might involve acting. You might involve them to act a role, or maybe that the other members of the seminar might ask them questions about who they are and why they are how they are. Is that on the right track?
That's on the right track. And also, I mean, there are very extreme methods. For example, with patience, there could be the word patience on a piece of paper hung around your neck, and then everybody knows that this is your job to show patience in everything. And so they may devise situations where that is tested. There are, in say, if in a seminar situation, in the spaces in between, if a group is working together, there are a lot of things which can happen.
I can definitely see, especially. I mean, it comes to mind if, for instance, I'm sure one of the global villagers that you have in your Unity Tarot might be a person who perhaps is a Muslim person, someone who believes in the faith of Islam. I'm sure you have a few of those, yes?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that acoustically.
Oh, sorry. You might
You seem
have
to.
in the Unity Tarot some of the global villagers who are, for instance, of the Muslim persuasion, might be
Oh,
followers.
definitely 23 Muslims.
Right. So, for instance, that in itself is an example, in my own personal experience, that would be more confronting for, say, the people in my end of the world, because, as you're obviously aware, at this time we have this tremendous tension between religions, and this seeming separation and boundary line, and it's us against them, and it's the Western world, or the Catholic Christian religion versus the Muslim religion. There's a lot of fire right now between these people. And if you
Yeah.
were to take, for instance, the Muslim character in your Unity Tarot, and then for instance, someone who is of a Christian origin and has problems with the current situation, or finds that the situation is a difficult one to comprehend, it would really be a test, a challenge for that person to take on someone they might conceive as an enemy, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have actually also got a global villager, a boy in Israel, and someone on the West Bank as another global villager. I have deliberately included that also.
Well, you got big
Um,
trouble right there, Rosie. You've got big trouble right there
yeah,
because
I, yeah. But the aim is for people to try and understand each other on a different level without interference of their experience so far. Um, it is my attempt, if you like, to be an instrument of peace, as in that wonderful prayer. I find it very difficult to see people suffering, and would like to just contribute to ending that in whatever way I can think of, basically. And one of these things is working on increasing unity, and these things which separate us, they will turn out to be illusion if you do this sort of work.
I think this topic as well is something that's given a lot of lip service in terms of unity, and the understanding, or the idea that there is in fact a brotherhood of man, or a sisterhood, and that everybody really, there is no separation, the separation of race, of color, of creed, of economic circumstance. These are all superficial, um, you know interchangeable variables that really have no essence or foundation in the fact of the unity of mankind. And I'd be interested to know, in your experience, because you have tested this Unity Tarot, this project, in a seminar situation. Can you tell me a couple of examples that you've found where the most challenging aspects of the project for people who have tested it out?
Um, what is challenging? It is very challenging to return to one's childhood and to suddenly be asked to be and behave like a child. That is a very challenging thing, because most of the ideas or preconceptions or strategies which we've developed have actually occurred in our very early years. And they often influence us in the way we behave now, when in a way which is not entirely appropriate. So that is very difficult. It also brings out a lot of repressed emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it only brings up what it's always the case. It brings up things which the person can actually deal with at that moment, because this is the way things work. When you have said yourself, when the student is ready, the teacher will come. Well, the teacher may come in the form of an experience or a new perspective. And in the course of seminars like this, there are a lot of people who burst into tears because it touches them on an emotional level. It might be compassion. It might be reminding them of an unpleasant experience themselves, of a conflict which has not been resolved. So a lot of this comes up and is looked at in a completely different way. And if emotions come to the surface, in general, that is a very catharsis. It's a process which provides great relief. Speaking about something which has been a secret, say, for 10, 20, 30 years, or a hurt which it's something that has not been healed yet. So it is a healing method in a way.
And I think as well, I think it helps in a very practical way when you talk about people being touched emotionally, people being affected in such an emotional way when they go through this process of the Unity Tarot, because it touches a part of themselves that is often forgotten. This humanity, this
Yeah.
sense of brotherhood, this sense of taking on another person's problems or the burden of another person. I mean, we have family. We have family that we take on the burden of. We have brothers and sisters. We have fathers and mothers, people who have their own troubles and discomforts. And we, in our love for them and our immediate desire to help them, we often will take on the burden. We will shoulder their burden. We will see from their perspective. We will understand, and we will do what we can do to alleviate the hurts or difficulties of their lives. And then
Yes.
we only generally localize this. For the majority of people, they don't understand that. Well, it's obvious that they don't understand it's a global family, because they only sense it in their own opinions. Their immediate family, or the maybe the dozen or so people around them immediately, are the ones that they are related to. But if they were to expand this and take on, as you seem to be able to do with the Unity Tarot, they take on the perspective of a global family. They take on the perspective that they are one of 7 billion, more or less. And
You take over the emotions also of the character, as in family constellation work. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
I'm not,
where you have
no.
a group. You have a group of people, and the person who has this issue or problem will say, "Oh, please, can you be my mother?" And they put them in a certain area in the room. "Oh, can you please act my father, represent my father?" And in a sort of meditative field or space, they actually do take on the emotions and feelings of these people, although they are not present. And it is possible by voicing that, or by changing position in the room, to sort out certain relationships which are all mixed up and misunderstood also. So you must think of this as a huge global family constellation effort, if you like. And if you identify yourself with a global villager and go through that transformational process, you are actually representative for 1% of the global population. So that is another aspect because all this work which is done, it may not be tangible, but it has a big effect on the ethers, if you like, on the consciousness, on the collective consciousness also.
Why is it, do you think, that people have? I mean, I think this might be a difficult question to ask, but maybe you can relate on your.
Right.
I'm gonna put it on you here, but why is it? Do you think that people have such difficulty to take on a wider perspective and perceive the wider humanity as a whole as family? Do you think that's necessarily something that people can't do or that they won't do in your experience? What do you think that's based on?
Well, my experience is that everything is a choice. It's just a question of whether one is aware of that choice. And also the ability to put things on hold and not reject them outright. If you hear about something outrageous or a different theory or what people label as conspiracy theories, if you just say, no, it's not possible, all these things, it's like putting them on the back burner. Oh, it could be true. Oh, this person might be quite different. Oh, let's see what comes next. Let's see what the next puzzle of the jigsaw is. I think it's a lack of curiousness and general apathy. And a lot of concentration on materialism and commerce and lack of connection to the intuitive side of oneself, which we often call the feminine or the divine feminine, if you like. These are all words, but really it's just coming back to reassessing boundaries. This is something essential. What we think is true may seem true at that moment in time and is entirely relevant. But when you move on to a new experience, you will see that in a different light. Like something which happens to you, which is absolutely dreadful, may seem like a tragedy. With a passing of time, and I don't mean time per se, I mean when other experiences have come after that, and you're able to see it in a different perspective. That doesn't become a terrible thing. It becomes a step towards a wonderful thing. A new experience, or it's the ability to see things in this light, which I think is greatly lacking. And also the tendency also to look for like a savior outside of yourself, not realizing your own creative potential, looking to others for the solution of problems, and others are often only too happy to provide solutions which are good for them. Often this has to do with making money, which unfortunately is something which would be better to eradicate.
Yes, yes. Now,
which is another theme altogether.
yes, absolutely. I'd agree with you. The other thing I wanted to start to get into a little bit, we're moving along now in the second half, and there's still so many questions to ask. This section about important qualities which could
Yeah.
change our world. Now, this is a very important question, and you had elucidated for me some here about honesty, about
Yes, very
love,
important.
love and
Yeah.
respect, gratitude, self-expression,
Yeah.
awareness of divinity, and awareness of cycles. Now, can we go through those, and can you speak a little bit to those each? Can we start with honesty as an important quality that can change our world?
Yes, you just have to imagine if everybody in the whole world decided to be honest, saying their honest feelings, exposing any corruption which they are aware of, the world would change overnight. You can try this one at home. You can try being honest for a day
But
or
it
a
does
week.
cause a lot of trouble, doesn't it, being honest, Rosie? It can cause a lot of trouble.
I don't mean honest in a sort of hard way and an accusing way. I think maybe authenticity is a more all-encompassing word. To be authentic, not to hide or shadows, and not to hide your light either.
Hmm. Because I would probably venture, and you may or may not agree, but it does appear that a lot of people who live their lives on this planet right now are willing to live them without that authenticity and without that honesty. And it's almost like we live a, I don't want to say it because it's a little cliche, but we live a lie. And a lot of us are unwilling to talk about certain things, whether it be our emotions, whether it be certain ways in which we feel dejected or unworthy, or that maybe there's something that somebody's doing that it shouldn't be, but you say nothing and you allow. And this, I mean, there seems to be, even if it was even reflected in the way in which we have our financial system, which is a debt-based system, which is usurious, which means that people are indebted to a system of slavery, and they're forced to work as they do, very in a very difficult way, and they live, and they go through the motions, and they don't question, or they don't come to realize, or not willing to accept in authenticity the honest truth of their situation if it's too uncomfortable. I mean, would you agree that for the majority, most people are missing a lot of authenticity in their life?
Not only that, I think they're missing out on things like ecstasy. Um, what is considered enjoyment for many, many people is actually limiting them. This includes things like eating and drinking and sex also. There are many further, whereas it can be, they are pleasures which have little to do with the soul in a way. It's the spiritual connection. If you have the spiritual connection, all these things I've just mentioned can be raised up to a different level. And this is where ecstasy can come in. And we're
Right.
not talking about the drug.
Okay. No, not right now. And let's move on. Can we go into love and respect? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, if you try approach everybody with a loving heart, it obviously makes a big difference. If you sit somewhere and don't say anything and don't smile and don't react, then that is not going to come back to you. This is one of the cosmic laws of creation, that what you send out will come back. So if you send out a positive, loving energy, that will come back also. And it will come back because we are all part of the same thing, the same consciousness, the same life force. So in fact, you are benefiting yourself. Self-love is also very important. Otherwise, if you sacrifice yourself all the time, then you are not in position to give love from a sort of positive, loving center.
And respect, I think, is a huge one. I mean, my
Oh,
gosh,
it's huge.
this is just an unbelievable aspect. I mean, this is one that could really just change the face of our world overnight if we were able, number one, and willing, number two, to indulge this respect for other people, other places, other religions, other cultures, other perspectives, which is, the driving force of your spiritual revolution project. I mean, this respect thing is so badly lacking. I mean, would you say?
It is, yes. I'd say it's badly lacking. I would say that it can be taken too far. In fact, something which can be called, say, political correctness, that
Right.
can move into an area which you can characterize by saying it's extreme tolerance. And if you are extremely tolerant of something which is taking a turn for the worst, then that leads to self-destruction. So there's a sort of a bit of a tightrope to walk there.
Right. Right. Respect for others, and yet at the same time, respect for yourself, and your God-given right to express yourself and to have your own opinions and perspective, I guess, in a sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
And
also to be in alignment with the higher good for everybody.
mm,
Um, if everybody, all 7 billion of us, are demanding respect from each other and for their own languages, customs, to the degree that there is intolerance, how can I say this? There must be a general agreement also that we have to work together for the general good.
hmm Hmm. And I guess that as well ties into um, the idea of free will. This was another question altogether different that I wanted to pose to you, but I think loosely, in a superficial way, we can tie it into it because free will. A lot of people think that free will is the most important thing and that we should be able to express our own free will at all times. But few would take it to the extent where they would imagine how bad the situation might become if everybody at any time is allowed to express any kind of free will and not be imposed upon or being forced to moderate their behavior. If everybody on this planet was not exhibiting any sense of responsibility or attention to the greater good and expressed themselves completely of their own free will, we would have anarchy and chaos, wouldn't we?
Well, actually, that is what we have. The anarchy
Yes.
could get a bit more, but we have got the chaos, and we have got the ability to self-destruct ourselves. This is why at the end of each text of the global vision, there are the questions, and the last question is always, "What if everybody did this? What if everybody did this?" And I think this is a very good guideline. What if everybody was honest? What if everybody demanded that respect should be paid to them daily, whatever? We can sort of then develop a responsibility, a global responsibility.
Hmm. Okay, gratitude. I love this one. Can we talk a bit about gratitude? I love gratitude.
Well, basically, if you're grateful for everything that comes along, then it's a form of appreciation. It just makes you happy. You see only positive things. You live in abundance, and you will send out that sort of message to the universe, and then the abundance will just keep coming. Also, because you keep seeing it. So. And to express, I mean, we live on an amazing planet, and I strive to be in gratitude most of the time for being able to live on the planet, which I conceive of as many people also as a living being. Um, I'm grateful for everything that comes to me, and I know that it is a wonderful journey, despite hiccups here and there. So I'm grateful for all learning processes also.
And I mean
Um,
gratitude as well, Rosie. I mean you can implement gratitude in every aspect of your life. A lot of the problems we have as well is again it's associated with perspective, but people aren't grateful for the simple things. You can be grateful
uh,
for everything. You can be grateful for your warm cup of hot chocolate in the morning. You can be grateful to sit in front of the fireplace warming your hands at night on a bitterly cold evening. You can be grateful for the smile of your young son as he wakes up in the morning and greets you with a kiss on the cheek. I mean, when you look at it from that perspective, there is nothing that is you would not be remiss in not being grateful for in being grateful for absolutely anything and everything.
that's it, including the negative things, which are only there actually to get you over some sort of hurdle and to learn more, so that you are happier. Um,
I think you hit the nail on the head with the gratitude one. That's why I said it's my favorite one because this one, if you implement that in most aspects of your personal life, you're going to see incredible transformation of yourself and your willingness to expand your consciousness to conceive that in reality, the entire scope of your existence, whether they be in your mind to be of a more negative influence or a positive one, are all useful tools and creative steps on a journey that takes you from one point to another. It's all there to be great, to show gratitude for. And I love that one. That one's really, really important to me. Self expression, again, this one very
yeah.
vital, was something that we need to address here. Talk to us about self-expression.
Yes, well, I mean, there's a tendency, especially well, I mean, this is my experience as a woman, not to push and express what your needs really are, or to listen more than say your own feelings. So, and I have also been in many, taken part personally in many group therapy sessions where emotions have just exploded to the surface. And you can see that these are people, and I include myself in this, who have not said things for years, which have been then manifesting themselves as diseases in their bodies at some point. For example, a friend who has a lot of problem with rheumatism has had a very strong inflexibility. Yeah? She has not been able to say what she feels or to change her ideas about things, so the bodily symptoms have appeared.
Mm-hmm. And self-expression as well. I mean, you are an artist. I have experience in the arts. I understand people, might say, well, self-expression is something a little bit more dramatic, and especially where I'm in Australia right now, and culturally we're known as being more of the type of culture to suppress our emotions, and we can often have a dry and sarcastic wit here down under, and this is the way we express ourselves. But basic self-expression, examples of talking about how you feel and how things impact you, and expressing yourself to others, doesn't have to be overly dramatic, doesn't it? It can be simple, it can be small, it can be what I'm saying, it doesn't have to be a dramatic act.
No, no, no. It happens every day. It happens when you look at the newspaper and you see that a war has started or someone's being killed, and then you carry on and drink your cup of coffee, and it hasn't affected you.
Mm, mm.
And that's also being cut off from the emotions. It's cutting you off from your reaction is cut off.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's very necessary as well, and I do have personal experiences, people in my own life where I can see that lack of self-expression impacting directly on their physical health, and that is quite dramatic. Over years and years and years of suppressing their willingness to express themselves as they need to, it has
Yeah.
transformed their physical health into something that has become disease, and it's very real. It's not a concept that floats around in the air like a leaf. It impacts us directly in our lives.
Yes, and it also eradicates the blame game. If you, a lot of people are often in the victim's role. They think, oh, this disease has come to plague me, or whatever has come to plague me. But actually, it does have the roots of it is actually in one's own psychological makeup, and to recognize that. And it's very important. And often, if things are expressed and worked on, then those symptoms will disappear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, terrific. And now let's move on to the next one. Awareness of divinity. I mean, this is a big one. Well,
Yes.
talk to us about this. What do you mean by awareness of divinity?
It is this awareness of oneness with everybody on this planet and beyond this planet, and feeling responsible for that also. Um, we are all part of a creative force which should be respected as such. And the answers, many people look for answers to their problems outside of themselves. Through meditation, it is possible to be online, if you like, to this creation, life source, God, whatever you'd like to call it. It is possible to receive your answers and to develop in a spiritual way. This is what, for me, is the divine connection. if I have a problem, I can just tap into that. If I can always ask what I need to know for a certain situation. If I'm going to meet a certain person, what is important. So it is also a concept of oneself as a soul, which is not limited to the physical body at all. That's more like a coat that we put on and put off, and then we go to the next wardrobe and choose a new coat.
Yeah, right.
It's like a new body. So it's a concept of oneself as a soul moving from one experience to the other, from one life to the next, on an ever increasing, on a learning journey, assisting oneself and assisting others on the way.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is a journey which never ends. If we choose that, it will never end.
In my experience, Rosie, I've been very lucky to have some wonderful people on the program and to talk about, I would say, matters of divinity and matters of spirituality. Now, I think for the largest part of humanity, this awareness of divinity is one of the real problems, or well, real problems. There's a lot of problems, but this is one of the more pertinent ones. And I think some people misconstrue what it is to be divine and what divinity can actually be. For example, when I'm talking to someone about divinity, or I'm talking to someone on an interview and they're expressing how through meditation they contact a part of themselves which is part of, say, the inner world and not the outer, which relates to their divine self, which relates to their universal self with which they can draw information, and they label it as divine or they label it as spiritual. A lot of people connote spiritual and divine with religion. Okay, and
Yes.
now religion isn't necessarily what we're talking about, is it? When we say
No,
divinity, it's not expected that you should go and pick up some kind of religious text and start to study it and memorize prayers and lines and verses to repeat ad infinitum. But it's a sensation, isn't it? It's this divinity within us is something that doesn't require books of learning. It doesn't require years of university to study. It doesn't require you to attend some kind of church every a certain day of the week, every week, and offer 10% of your income. This is something that you can sense and discover within yourself without anybody else, isn't it?
exactly. It's a very, very personal story and a very personal development. Everybody who wishes to can go into that. One of the very great things you need for that is trust that what you hear when you do it, when you are in meditation, that has some meaning. And to take it one step at a time. Books may help, seminars may help, but in the end, it is something which you keep at. You may have an astonishing experience. Some people have near-death experiences to indicate that there is something on the other side of the veil, if you like. Everybody's experience is different, and it helps for me. It has helped a great deal to talk to other people who've had these sort of experiences and to compare and contrast. But it is a personal journey. Religion, there's an awful lot of dogma in there, an awful lot of repetition. And if God actually was a man sitting on the couch up there listening, I think he'd be terribly bored, because it is always repetition. This is a personal relationship with spirit, if you like. It's a something which develops in a different way from everybody else, and really it is respecting the divine seed, if you like, inside yourself. It's like having also a divine blueprint. If you have a little acorn, it can remember how to turn into a big oak tree, given the right circumstances. The blueprint is always there. So our aim, whether we take steps forwards or backwards, is actually to fulfill this divine blueprint.
Yeah.
And the idea of reincarnation is, of course, essential to this. uh, when we enter this life, we sort of know beforehand what we're getting into. We make a contract, a soul contract, what it is we want to experience. Also, sometimes the people we meet on the way, the parents we choose. This is all sort of the blueprint, if you like, for or this is not the blueprint. This sort of circumstances which you yourself choose, as one has done many times before, to move up on the next step of the spiritual journey. And whatever we achieve in a material way, we actually leave behind and have done that also many times. So this fear of death, which is very prevalent in religions also, or also from other areas, that is a great blockage, really, for the spiritual journey.
I say, definitely that's the case, and it's, I had a very personal experience with someone who I was speaking to at some length a couple of years ago now. It was about divinity and spirituality, and I was trying to relate to him the importance of his willingness to head in that direction and to discover that and to show the intention that that was where he wanted to go, and that would unfold an entirely new world of divinity and spirituality for himself. And he said to me that he said, I've been there and I've done that. I said, I don't understand what you mean. I've been there and I've been to church. I went to church for the first 20 years of my life. I was forced to go by my parents. I went every day. I learned every prayer. I was an altar boy. I did this and I did that. And he said, it did nothing for me. I'm not interested anymore. This whole religion thing does nothing for me. And it riled me up because I love that person very much. But they didn't understand that this idea of religion and this idea of divinity or the godness within oneself is not necessarily to do with each other at all, and that his willingness to try or his willingness to let this process unfold was so damaged by his previous experiences that he was just simply unwilling to go there anymore. And I think this awareness of divinity is just vital, and it destroyed me, a part of me, because I was just so disappointed for this very special person in my life that they weren't ready and willing to go there. At another time they may be, and they'll take that journey when they're able, but it's just vitally important. Now we have one more here, awareness of cycles. Can you tell us a bit more about that, Rosie?
Well, that in fact, I think that the global villager who's aware of cycles, I think, is someone who's afraid of dying in India, an old lady. And she is so upset and fearful about getting old, and that she just sits there with her beggar bowl at Varanasi at the Ganges and waits for people to throw coins in. She doesn't even manage to get up and walk down to the river, which for her, the Ganges, is a holy river which can cleanse her and also sort of cleansing procedure. She cannot do this. She's her awareness of cycles, the awareness that dying is just like going through another door, inspires her to talk to others, etc., and makes her and transforms her life. So cycles are something which happen. Our one life is a cycle, if you like. The planets have their own cycles. The universe has different cycles going on all the time.
I mean, everything is cyclical, isn't it, really?
Most people are just aware of their daily routine, is what I'm saying, actually.
Yeah, and this cycle, this everything is cyclical. It's like wheels within wheels. We have galactic cycles. We have cycles of our solar systems. The planets do what they do. Our solar system moves within a larger system in a cyclical way. We have our cycle of our lives. We have birth and death. We have awaking and sleeping. We have sickness and health, richness and poorness. And these cycles, it's like wheels within wheels. I mean, Even the
Yeah,
climate itself does what it does at increments and stages in fantastic cycles of hundreds of thousands of years in some cases, and it's this inability for people to grasp the idea of these cycles, and it's natural. This.
it's natural. It shouldn't be something that makes you despondent, though. It's in the sense of a renewal or a completion, and then a renewal.
Yes, and that's the nature as well of a cycle. If you might think of a circle, there's no end and there's no beginning. It's endless. It's
Yeah,
infinite. And but it does go
yeah.
through, you do travel around the circumference of that cycle or that circle, and you make your way through it. But there's no beginning and no end. And I think, in our linear perspective, that's quite a struggle for so many people, because we are trained and we are programmed to consider that everything has a beginning and an end. And in
Yeah.
reality, this is the ultimate falsehood, isn't it?
Yes, there are so many dimensions. I mean, you mentioned the linear time frame, for example. There are many different dimensions, and time may be an element there. It may not be an element. It might be slower, faster. It might not exist at all. Um, it's like we could also be many different people at the same time, acting at the same time in different time spheres or on different planets, all at the same time simultaneously. Only our awareness of that is lacking.
Mm,
So things are much more complex than they may seem on the surface.
mm. And I think it's well, I mean, it goes without saying, this is that's an one what's the word, one aspect of the spiritual revolution project is just figuring that out, is realizing that the situation is a lot more complicated. There's much more perspective to take in, and the greater we can expand our consciousness and awareness of the situation as it truly is, we and others will benefit from that. Now, Rosie, we are nearing the end of the second section, and I feel very proud. We have gone through incredible multitude of experiences and ideas and themes, and there's still so much to be said. But I don't think we can, in good faith, continue on and expect to get through anything with the time remaining. I'd just like to finish, if I could, Rosie, by asking you, from your heart, what is it that you would like to see your project accomplish, this spiritual revolution project? What is it you would like to see it accomplish, and what is it that you feel like we really we need to accomplish to move forward and upwards and onwards in our evolution as a people and as a brotherhood in humanity?
I think you said it already, but what I would like to see is everybody walking this planet with a feeling of love in their hearts and a desire to learn. And this is just one way of doing it. I'm sure there are many, many, many others.
Mm.
We have reached a point on this planet where it cannot continue in this way.
No.
We are also disconnected from each other. We have many preconceived ideas of what we are, of what other people are. There is an extreme degree of aggression. People talk about wars or as if it's an everyday thing, as if it's completely normal.
Normal, yeah, yeah.
I think we need to radically revise our ideas of what normal is, or if things appear to be absurd, to be able to look at the very roots of that problem and not just order some sort of cosmetic repair work, but to really go at the roots and to remove certain structures which allow that. It means being very radical. It means taking old structures down and building perhaps from scratch again.
Yes.
It means also giving up a lot of the luxuries that some people have.
Yes. Yes.
In the spirit of it all being for the higher good. There's no point, say, in everybody in the street where I live, all having an electrical appliance to cut the hedge when one will do. This sort of mentality goes through the board in all areas. You know?
Yes.
How many things do we actually really need? What is it that actually really makes us happy and fulfilled?
Yes.
It's not material goods at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's the closeness, the relationships we have to our families, our children. It's really how much can we give? The question is not how can I have a great life based on the sort of conventional ideas of accumulating money or property or whatever.
Mm.
Of course, if we're talking about a global perspective, we must automatically include areas where there is very little water, where there is very little to eat, where corruption also is paramount. Corruption is one of the biggest problems.
Yes.
Globally. So there are so many problems to be addressed. And what I would hope is that people find ways and find the courage also to address these problems and to really instigate change, because that will be a very fulfilling thing for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Rosie. Well, terrific. Thank you very much for that. That one fantastic. I think we've exhausted ourselves in bringing in so much information in such a short time. But I'm very very grateful to you, Rosie, for deciding to make yourself available. And I think people are really going to appreciate what you've been able to bring to the interview. And I would hope that maybe you might consider coming in and doing it all again.
It would be my pleasure, Ben. Thank you.
Wonderful, excellent. Well, that does leave us with no time left, folks. So I just want to thank you very much for listening in to this interview and this program, and I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to visit Rosie's website. Go to www.rosiejackson.de. That's RosieJackson.de. And you'll find an incredible project there, the Spiritual Revolution Project, and other very, very interesting information for you to digest and take on. Thank you very much again. We will be back again to do this very, very soon. Have a great day, and thanks for listening in.